So with all due respect to the Red Sox, Yankees, the Cubs, Cardinals, all the Subway series that might exist out there, the Rangers Astros is the best rivalry in baseball. Hi there, John Radigan here. Still in Michigan. Jeff's at the ballpark already, feeling the buzz about this series. Jeff Wilson, John Radigan. The Queen is she's actually back home. I got to say hi or good night to her baby Enzo, who was laying down for a nap just before you came on, Jeff. So yeah, that was great. But anyway, we're glad to have her helping us out. This technical stuff has worked so well, and and I get it, Jeff. I mean, if I brought this topic up in New York or in St. Louis or in Chicago, they're going to argue with me. But based on what happened in that ALCS, and then also based on, this from having been here for now 20 some years, there is a rivalry between Houston and Dallas that greatly, that so far precedes the series and the baseball that this is a heck of a rivalry.
Yeah, it's our rivalry, and right now, currently, it probably is baseball's best rivalry. I mean, historically, of course, it's going to be Yankees, Red Sox,
right,
Dodgers, Giants, Cubs, Cardinals, but the teams are competitive. The teams are very good, and they really don't like each other. At least the fan bases don't. And you're right about the rivalry between the two cities, and it goes all the way down to high schools.
Yeah,
you'll hear around state football tournament time or playoffs, I guess. Oh well, DFW won this many state titles. Houston didn't win any, or Houston won one. So it does go down and starts kind of grassrootsy, and it's fun. I mean, it adds to an ordinary game in the middle of May, and it'll be good to see. And like we said last night, it's another good test for the Rangers.
Yeah, a test for where they have been improving. A test, of course, for the pitching staff. They've passed all of those though so far. So hopefully that will continue. But the areas in which they have been improving, we're going to talk more about. We're going to get to that offense and some of those improvements a little later in the show. And we'll also talk about how this team has suddenly been getting off to fast starts and then maintaining it. All things that are so important. But as we continue to talk the rivalry, I will say this too, Jeff, and I've been in Dallas for 35 years now. So, I'm dang near a native now. But I was surprised when I first did get here. I mean, first of all, there is some rivalry between Dallas and Fort Worth, of course.
Right.
But then also that rivalry between Dallas and Houston. I guess in Michigan, where I grew up, like nobody can compete with Detroit, right? So Grand Rapids isn't over there puffing out their chest saying, we're better than you. I mean, they're little Grand Rapids. Flint, they're not going to say we're better than Detroit. So the two could easily lay claim, especially if you include Fort Worth, which, by the way, I just saw today on a news alert, I think from NBC5, that Fort Worth has surpassed 1 million in population and becomes the 4th largest city in Texas. So, and the fastest growing city in North Texas, Jeff. So we both kind of have more Tarrant County ties, you being with the Star-Telegram and TCU. When I started at Channel 5, they were over in Fort Worth. They're by the airport now, but I feel a little sense of pride for that.
Well, Fort Worth is one of the 15 biggest cities in the country. I mean, it's not just little old Fort Worth. As you just talked about, the 1 million people and with a bunch of industry, Facebook having moved in some offices there. So it's a big deal. And now, I still am amazed, though, every time I go to Houston. It's like, where does this thing end?
Right. Yeah.
And no matter what direction you go, whether you're going north to south or east to west, it's like, uncle, all right, give me some country. But it's kind of a curious spot for both of these teams because, the Rangers did have the most recent world title, and the Astros, they kind of have shifted gears a little bit, after last year's team. They lost 2 marquee players. There's no other way to talk about it. And Bregman and Tucker choosing to not re-sign Bregman and trading away Tucker, afraid of what he would cost them after the season in free agency. And they're still without a bunch of their pitchers who Rangers became familiar with, Urquidy and Christian Javier, Luis Ortiz, and now you're getting guys like Hunter Brown, the guy who's facing off tonight against Jacob deGrom, who has the second best ERA in the American League, topped only by minuscule margin by Tyler Mahle. So it's going to be some different faces, still some same faces. You still get to boo Jose Altuve if you're
so inclined,
a Rangers fan and so inclined, as I'm guessing they all will be. But really, my son and I were talking about this morning. The Astros are coming to town, and a lot of people are going to get booed. I was like, yeah, but I don't really know that there are a lot of people left from the cheating scandal. The booing now is just a lustful hatred for the franchise and the rivalry. So it's but things are transitioning. Are the Astros going to go ahead and win the division again for what, a 9th straight time?
Yeah.
Or something that it's could be a turning point season in the West.
It could, and that's the thing that the Astros fans, if you say, well, we won the most recent World Series, and by the way, there was a significant head-to-head battle in our run to the World Series, and they say, how many have you won again, right? I mean, they've still got sort of scoreboard there, and I don't blame them. If the Rangers had won 3 or whatever, they would hold the same thing against the Astros. So I don't blame them for that. But I do think the fact that it was such a integral part of that World Series run, that the Rangers had such a great battle in the ALCS, no less, right? One goes home, one goes to the World Series, and it went 7 games, and it was just a fantastic series. And I do think it was the one that began to signal the end of that Astros dynasty as we knew it. Now, they continue to win. As you mentioned, they win the division last year. Also, they are winning this year. The 2 teams basically come in tied right now with each of them 2 games over 500. The Astros, because of the different number of games played, have a slightly higher winning percentage, but basically they're each tied at 2 games over 500 heading into this one. So there's a lot at stake, a lot on the line in this series.
Sure, and you need to win your division games, and Bruce Bochy mentioned something yesterday that it seems like that the team who's been at home has been at a disadvantage, at least in this series, head to head, and you can go back to the ALCS where the home team failed to win any of the 7 games. And so the Astros have been really productive here. If you go back to that regular season series, the last time they were here in 23, I believe it was Labor Day weekend, they just bludgeoned the Rangers.
Yeah.
It was awful. It was just bad to watch if you were a Rangers fan. I mean, I think Altuve had 3 home runs one game in 3 innings, and just stuff that it really made it look like big brother, little brother situation.
Yeah.
But the tables turned in the postseason, and last year the Astros ended up winning. They won 7 of the 13 games, so the series was 7-6. It was pretty even. The run differential was only 3 runs. So you're talking about, and it's not like the Astros won 110 games last year.
No,
and just dominated the division. They won 86 games. And the division was really open for anybody at the trade deadline, including the Rangers, and it just didn't happen. But it'll be fun to see where these guys are. There's some new faces with the Astros: Christian Walker and Isaac Paredes, the primary ones. They have some young pitchers who are going to be new to Rangers fans. So some new people to boo, I guess, if you're a Rangers fan.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you talked about the changes they let happen or inspired over the offseason. And I was just looking at one of the things on MLB, trade deadline candidates, and they list Framber Valdez as a pretty high candidate. And again, that's because he'll be a free agent after this year. And we always said that when the Astros were building this really great team, this dynastic team, we always said they're not going to be able to pay them all. And who knew they were only going to be able to pay Altuve? I mean, like, they've let them all go.
Well, and you can question the wisdom of that signing. I mean, who would you rather have? Altuve, who's older, and who really, they had to move off of second base to a less premium defensive position in left field. So, did they misallocate their funds? I know Altuve is a fan favorite, has been there since, he endured those awful seasons in 10, 11, 12, 13. He was part of those teams. So maybe they felt a loyalty to him, but I don't know that he's the guy I would have signed. If I'd had a choice to sign Bregman, Tucker, or Altuve, he probably finishes third in that race. So, it's interesting, and the ownership, their guy tried to buy the Rangers. Remember, he missed out. He was partnered with Cuban, and it seems like they have had the money, but now maybe a new CFO or something has come in, and it's like, you need to tap the brakes there, Jim. So it is a different time. But Valdez doesn't sound like they're going to. There hasn't been extension talks that I'm aware of. That doesn't mean they haven't happened. But he's in an interesting spot. They're in an interesting spot with this guy.
Yeah, and of course, anybody who would trade for him realizes they're trading him. You're trading for a rental, right? A guy who's going to be a free agent at the end of the season. But you can still make pretty good trades even in those situations. But certainly, you don't get the premium return that you would have if they had tried, say, last year at the trade deadline to trade him, when the team receiving him would have gotten a year and a half at least sort of work out of him. But anyway, they seem to be in a transition mode. There's no doubt about that. Credit to them. They continue to win even in said transition mode. So, that's good. But I do believe that the changing of the guard continues tonight at Globe Life Field with an awfully good matchup. Let's take a look. Kat, do we have the pitching matchup for the entire series? There it is. But tonight is the marquee, Jeff, with Hunter Brown, who back in the day actually made his major league debut against the Rangers and accounted pretty well for himself. But since then, the Rangers have done fairly well against him. That said, he's already one of the horses in the race for the Cy Young this year. And of course, he's facing Jacob deGrom. That's a marquee matchup tonight, Jeff.
It is. And you look at the numbers, and you'd probably expect them to be reversed, but they aren't. But, you kind of can narrow it down a little bit deeper on deGrom, and that ERA has just been coming down and down since his first couple outings. It's going to be fun to see if you like pitching, and which if you're a Rangers fan this season, you really like the pitching. You're going to enjoy this one, and I am curious to see. Jacob, he had he was so dominant at times against the Tigers the other day. Gave up the 2 homers, but still was just could have gone further probably. And I wonder with a little bit of uncertainty there in the bullpen tonight, if they do ask him to go a little bit deeper in the game, if he's pitching fine and efficient and everything.
Yeah, we'd love to. Anytime you can get more of Jacob deGrom, that's a good thing. I do think the Rangers, and we've talked about this on the show, I believe that Bruce Bochy in the front office and Mike Maddox and everybody involved in these decisions has done a great job of limiting his innings without offending him, Jeff, because again, a pitcher wants to pitch, but he realizes, and they all realize, they hope and they plan and they think they'll need him in October.
Yeah, that's the thought, and that was the game plan coming into the season, and they've really held on to it. They've shown some pretty good discipline for a team that wants to win and has this horse and 2-time Cy Young winner. But they're doing a really good job, really, with all the starters, not skipping.
All right, so we've got more coming as we continue to scurry our way through the DLLS Rangers podcast today. We are talking more about this series, and of course, we're talking more about this offense, which has been resurgent. It's coming next on the DLLS Rangers podcast. But first, Shady Rays. Look at there. It almost looks like I could pick that pair right up and put them on right on the screen here. That's not a pair I have, but I do believe that's a pair I think that I'll be getting soon. I like that pair of Shady Rays. I like all of them. They're very easy to use. They're very, very almost indestructible. They have plenty of styles, literally tons of styles, and you mix and match them with the different colors of the shades and the polarized lenses or non-polarized. I have the polarized. I encourage those. Anyway, everything about those Shady Rays is just fantastic. So I would encourage you to go ahead and get yourself a pair of Shady Rays, because the deal is you get 35% off. All you have to do is go to DLLS, or rather to ShadyRays.com, and use the code DLLS, and you get 35% off your Shady Rays. Also, Empire Today is our favorite florer of all the florers. We like Empire Today the best of all. They're the original. That's why everybody else who is out there doing this is copying Empire Today. They have the best products, the best prices, the most experience. What else could you want? And they'll do it quickly. You call them out and you get them to, you agree on the floor that you want, and they'll start the very next day. They'll get that thing going. These are experts in flooring. These are people who do only flooring. They're not over there selling you a garden weasel or a hoe or a rake. They are selling you floors, and they're selling them well. So go to to EmpireToday.com and get your things scheduled, and then you get $350 off your new floors with the code DLLS at EmpireToday.com. All right, we've had some audio issues with Jeff, but we're working through those as we continue with the DLLS Rangers podcast. And one thing we didn't get to, and there's Jeff back, before we get into the offensive improvement, Jeff, one of the things we didn't get to last night, and I regret this, is that Bruce Bochy had a significant win in his career last night as he moved into 6th place on the all-time list with Sparky Anderson. And obviously, especially for me, a guy who the very first manager I covered was Sparky. And I feel like, you start getting into a category with Sparky, that's rarefied air. And there Boch is tied with him. And obviously with a win tonight, he passes Sparky. I think I figured out last night right now, and Sparky can't get any more. But right now, Boch is he's 100. I think it's 132 behind Joe Torre. So, Joe's very catchable.
Yes.
The numbers get significant after that. And Connie Mack, I think, is pretty much out of reach for anybody.
Out of reach, yeah.
But he's kind of like 7 no-hitters for Nolan Ryan. But it's pretty cool to be around Bruce Bochy when he is so humbly climbing this ladder.
Yeah, and we ask him all, every time, about, you just passed Dusty Baker or whoever it is, and he's like, oh, I always say it's just humbling and an honor to be in that company, and I never thought it would have happened, but I'm gonna if I get the opportunity, after he passes Sparky, Sparky Anderson was the manager, as of the 1984 Detroit Tigers.
Yes, sir.
Who won the World Series over the Padres, and Bruce Bochy was the backup catcher. So my question to Boch is going to be if he feels like, he's finally gotten revenge on Sparky for the 84 World Series. But, he and, Dusty Baker had known each other for so long, and they'd both managed in San Francisco. And so I think that one meant something to Boch. And I think this one will too.
Guys who, Sparky Anderson, Big Red Machine, and then that phenomenal Tigers team. This is a guy who's, you know, obviously one of the best in baseball history, and so is Bruce Bochy, and
Yeah.
there's just no way around that.
Yeah. And Sparky was one of the first to win a World Series title in both leagues. Obviously, Boch has now done that too. But it was significant when he led the Tigers to that '84 World Series. And of course, when they were in town in Detroit, a lot of the writers and stuff there were asking Boch about the impending passing of Sparky Anderson, and Boch talked a lot about the influence of Sparky Anderson on his career when he was coming up, and he had ultimate respect for a guy like Sparky, and crossed paths with him on more than one occasion. Said he didn't really become friends with him until both were managing, and that may, to your point, Jeff, have something to do with the outright hatred he had for him after the Tigers beat the Padres in that '84 series. So,
that's right. Well, at any point, and probably this weekend, he can finally break the curse of Sparky Anderson.
Yeah. 100%. So obviously, the offense is getting so much better. We talked about it at length last night that, first of all, that there were 7 walks. The Rangers walked 7 times in the game. That's so nice to see because, again, it's sort of passing the baton. It's keeping it rolling. It's keeping things moving. But the most significant of those we talked about last night, you brought it up, Jeff, but the Josh Young bases loaded walk, which was counter to a young man who's still, getting his feet wet, relatively speaking, at the major league level, and a guy who's aggressive at the plate. And we now learn that Josh said in the post game interview that very scenario had come up in conversation with Brett Boone just a week or so ago. They were just talking, right? And I do think what we're going to discover is that is Brett Boone's style of coaching, right? He wants them. Remember, he said that. I just hope they're all talking. They're all watching everything, and they're all talking. He wants there to be so much talk amongst themselves that they almost don't need a coach. And they were just talking. It's not like he said, hey, if you get up in this situation, do this. They were just talking through scenarios, and then it happened. And I do know this. Those kinds of things Josh remembered it, brought it up last night. They lend tremendous credibility to a coach who's at this point when basically still trying to establish that.
Yeah, it's been 9 games. Tonight's the 10th game of the Brett Boone era. So, they're still Bruce Bochy's still saying, not a lot of effect here. Let's let him get comfortable and everything. Maybe giving him a nice soft landing in case things go the wrong way. But so you do look for little things though, like that. Would Josh Young have taken a walk there? 3-2 pitches. He laying off that 3 weeks ago. I don't know. And he even admitted he's not sure he would have.
Right.
The balls that are getting hit to right field and with authority, that's something new. These Rangers have been so pull happy. These right-handed hitters, especially. Josh Smith goes the other way. Corey Seager goes the other way. They're left-handed hitters. You haven't seen you haven't seen Wyatt Langford go the other way a lot. Adolis will occasionally. Jake Berger has occasionally. Simeon is still pretty pull happy, but even he's starting to hit the ball in the other field. He hasn't had a ton of positive results, but it's happening. So, I think that's something else, another effect. Just simplify it. Don't worry about what they're going to throw you. Just hit what they throw you, and hit it where it is. You don't have to do too much. If it's on the edge, hit it to that side of the ballpark. And I think they're doing a good job with that.
Yeah, and it's like our friend and your former colleague Randy Galloway always used to say on his radio show, "Watch the damn game." And that's essentially what Booney came in and said that to the players. Watch the damn game, and they are, and they're doing as again, it's just it's a tried and true mantra in baseball. That's, doing what the game asks you to do, doing what the game tells you to do, doing what the game requires, however you say it. That's what they're doing. And speaking of Jake Berger, I heard the walk-off interview with him last night. I heard it after the fact, but anyway, he was talking about, just for him personally, he said, he had a good line. He said, look, Rome wasn't built in a day; it was built brick by brick. So I'm just stacking bricks up right now, and he's doing it well. But what I liked is he said that one of his favorite at bats was his final one, in which I think he struck out, but he said he got off his A swing on that last pitch, right? Seeing the ball better, getting the right swing at the right time. You miss them sometimes. It's baseball. It's a really hard thing to do. But I can't remember for sure if it was a strikeout, but whatever it was, he didn't reach base, but he thought it was his best at bat because he got off the right swing at the right time. It just didn't come through.
Well, and that means he's moving well again. He had talked about his movements weren't right. So, if a hitter knows his swing isn't right, is he going to try to cheat and do other things and, chase and guess up there? And as Jake said, I guess it was Monday, be tentative and worry more about what the pitcher is going to do to him rather than just reacting and being, the guy that has hit more than 60 home runs in the past 2 seasons. So these are all positive things. We're seeing, in the Brett Boone games, really, they've only had one bad offensive game. I throw out the Scooble game,
of course,
because, well, he's different. I guess the Monday game wasn't a great offensive showing for the Rangers, but all right. So he's 7-2, and in the good game department. The Rangers aren't 7-2. Well, actually, they're pretty damn close.
Yeah,
but I think they're 6-3 with Brett Boone as the team coach.
That's
but
right.
The first game, obviously he had nothing to do with that. But maybe that was the burden being lifted off the offense of not getting anywhere, wheels spinning with Donnie Ecker. The next game they lost the game, but they still had a pretty productive day. The Thursday game was a disaster, not able to get hits and with runners in scoring position and 2 outs. But you're starting to see those 2-out hits come, seeing them do the right things with runners in scoring position, whether it's a fly ball or a ground ball or whatever. The Rangers' 4th run was scored on a fielder's choice. It looked like it might be a double play, but it was Evan Carter running, so he beat it out. All right, hey, that counts too. Those runs count.
That's right.
It doesn't matter whether you get it to the outfield or not. If the guy crosses home plate before the 3rd out, it counts. So good things are happening, and maybe it does come all together. The ball's leaving the ballpark again. Balls. You look at the exit velocities. There are a lot of balls consistently above 100 miles an hour. A lot of balls over 100 miles an hour. So it's these little things in maybe if you break down the game or break down at bats, and it's just been better. So, maybe this is all coming together. We'll see what happens tonight against a really good starting pitcher, but you have to hit good pitching too.
You do. You definitely do eventually. And like last night's game was a classic example of when Scooble pitched against the Red Sox. And again, sometimes he might just have a bad game, but he gave up 5 runs, I think, in that game. So you're like, oh, wow, okay, so somebody figured out how to hit him, right? And it's going to be the same thing with Hunter Brown. He's going to have games where he gives it up. And can our team, this team, your team, the team you love, can they inspire that sort of a bad game? Lots of times approach and how they sort of get up there. And as Jake Berger said, if all of them go up there and aren't worried about what Hunter Brown's going to do to them, but are thinking what they're going to do to him, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's the starting point. And obviously Jake hadn't talked a heck of a lot to Brett Boone when he came back to the organization this week, or to the big league club this week. He hadn't spoken a lot to him. That was something he sort of discovered on his own, or with the help of assistant coaches and others in the hitting department of the Texas Rangers. But it's working so far for Jake, and it couldn't happen to a nicer guy.
100%, and hopefully, get to see the Jake Berger, who's supposed to be this big power threat and an upgrade at first base.
Yeah, no doubt about it. More coming as we continue to talk through this one. We'll talk a little bit about how this team has been starting games. It's a good thing. Fast starts are good. They've been working. We'll talk about that and more as we continue with the DLLS Rangers podcast. And we want you to consider LinkedIn Jobs, especially if you are the owner of a small business, as my wife and I are. You need to hire somebody, and you really don't have time, man. It is, everything you can do to just basically accomplish the tasks that the business is set up to do, right? So it's like, oh my gosh, when are we going to have time to hire somebody? Well, if you use LinkedIn Jobs, you don't have to worry about that. They take care of all that for you. They vet out the candidates. They find the best candidates, and they will make this hiring process so much easier for you. Take one thing off your plate and go to LinkedIn Jobs. If you go to linkedin.com and use the code Rangers, your very first post, job post that is free. So you might well be able to get that first person you need, that great person, that perfect candidate, absolutely free. LinkedInjobs.com/Rangers.
It's warm weather time, which means it's cooler time, which means it's rugged road time. If you go to ruggedroadoutdoors.com and use the code DLLS, you'll get your 10% off your first purchase. And softball season, as we saw, is over, but baseball season is raring to go. In mid-season, got a tournament this weekend. I'd say it every time, man. I don't care about taking the rugged road to the lake or fishing with me. I want to take it to the ballpark where it's light and it's durable and it's going to keep stuff cold as it gets warmer and warmer. So, once again, ruggedroadoutdoors.com, use the code DLLS and you'll get 10% off.
So, yeah, and that season ended on a much more bitter note for the Sweet Cleats, Jeff, which I was awfully glad about, right? Was it?
Yeah.
Molly's not on the Sweet Cleats. She's on that other team.
She's on the Smashing Sweethearts, the champions of the 10U NYBA league this year. And the poor Sweet Cleats, bitter rivalry. We've got Rangers, Astros, and then right there next to it is Smashing Sweethearts, Sweet Cleats. And right now, it's the Smashing Sweethearts turn, kind of like it's the Rangers turn. Yeah.
I think that they may be getting. Well, I hope they're getting dynastic, but you did say one of the moms was moving away. That's bad.
Yeah, but the core of the team is still gonna be together. So I think that it's kind of like Dusty Baker retiring. The Astros, they still came out and won the division. So the Smashing Sweethearts are gonna stick together and hear a different voice. But they're still going to be good. Yeah.
Same message. Yep. Same message. Fantastic. The message to the Rangers is really, in a way, it's twofold because they've had a lot of games actually over the course of the early part of the season, Jeff, where they've started well in that first inning, and we've been scratching our heads some when they've done that. It's like, okay, they make some noise, if not a fair amount of noise in that first inning. And then they go silent, and we're rightly, I think, in many of those cases, giving the opposing pitcher, a lot of credit for settling in. But it's important, and what the Rangers have been doing lately, and it wasn't just against bad pitching, for lack of a better word, in Colorado. They did it in Detroit too. They're scoring early, and then they're scoring often, and they're keeping the pressure on either that pitcher or on that pitching staff, and that's a magic formula.
Yeah, and Bruce Bochy talked about it last night. He said that they asked about the early offense, and it's kind of like they were told. I don't know if they were explicitly told, but it's like, hey, runs in the first inning count too. Go out there and get them. Puts your pitcher in a good frame of mind. It it puts pressure on the other team. They're playing from behind. I know there are a lot of baseball left to go, but still, you never know what goes through their minds. And then, and this is kind of a Brett Boone thing that I believe Mark McLemore talked about, is don't let up. Keep your
No.
keep your foot on their throats, and keep mashing and keep scoring, because you never know what's going to happen. And the Rangers made it 6-1 last night, and the Rockies came right back with the 2-run homer, and it's a little uncomfortable game because Patrick Corbin's kind of running out of pitches. So and the Rangers came through with the Adolis home run and made it 8-3 again, and that allowed Bruce Bochy to maybe lay off some guys in the bullpen and go to Caleb Bosley to go as far as he could go before ultimately going to Robert Garcia. But yeah, keep the pressure on. And look, first game of a series, if you can get into an opposing team's bullpen, and that stuff mounts up by the end of the series, and it's just, there's so many advantages and reasons that you don't want to let up. And it seems like, and this is something I've kind of noticed over the years, it seems like the Rangers will have a 5-run third, let's say, and check out.
Yeah.
It might be 5-1 at the time, and the game ends up being 5-3. And you want to get to keep those runs coming, and it does great things for your bullpen.
Sure.
If you don't have to use your back end guys, all the better. So I highly endorse scoring early and then keep pouring it on.
Yeah, and to your point, a 4-game series, has an opportunity anyway to put even more pressure on the bullpen. You've got one extra game. If you continue to do that throughout the course of the 4 games, they're out of guys, or they're making call-ups by the end of the series. And that, I think you're right. I think it was in that conversation we had with Mac where he was saying, Edgar would be there in a 10-3 game, and he'd come up in the 7th inning, and the Mariners are up 10-3, and he is just grinding and giving it all. And the guys
Yeah.
would go, Edgar, what are you doing? And he goes, I'll tell you what I'm doing. He goes, I'm sending a message to them, to either that pitcher or to the relief pitcher who I might see another time in the season, and I'm sending a message to the young guys that and our team that this is how you play the game, right? So Edgar, as Mac told us, and Booney saw the same thing. It's his mentor. He never let up, and I agree with you. I think that mentality appears to be a little bit more prevalent already, and may get stronger and stronger as the Brett Boone era takes hold.
Well, you hope so, and it worked out pretty well for Edgar Martinez. I mean, it took 10 years, but he ended up getting in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
That's kind of what the great ones do. They're hard outs. They don't give away at bats, and you do want to have the pitcher thinking twice about you. There's no question about it. You see it all the time. A lot of guys get walked just on their reputation and what they're doing in the season and what they've done maybe earlier in the game. You want to pitch around guys sometimes, and look, extra base runners are a beautiful thing. But yeah, keep the pressure on. Be, as Jeff Bannister used to say, the first time I'd heard it, be bullies in the box. That's you're in charge, not the pitcher. So that's a pretty dang solid mentality to have.
It is. It's the same mentality that, we referenced with Jake Berger. Be Jake Berger in the box. Don't be a guy who's worried about what Hunter Brown's going to do. Be Jake Berger. Make Hunter Brown worry about what you're doing. And that's where the whole mental aspect of this game comes in. It's such a fine line and easy to say and a lot harder to do, because then Hunter Brown starts throwing those pitches and you go, holy crap,
Yeah.
This guy's got stuff.
Yeah. Well, if a team continues to score, it means they've made an adjustment, or that the other team hasn't been able to adjust. But I think that's one thing that's been lacking, and we've said it a couple of times. This team just hasn't been able to adjust. They might start fast, and really last night, they scored the 4 runs against Sensazella, and then he's still there going in the 5th inning. It's like, boy, they had an opportunity to really knock that guy out. He made an adjustment that the Rangers weren't able to make. So that's part of it too. This you can adjust, um, game to game, at bat to at bat, pitch to pitch. There are things that happen in an at bat where you're going to have to change what you're doing. So it never ends. The work never ends. You never have it figured out, even within games, and the relief arms that teams are bringing in now are uh, power arms with power stuff, and maybe they're a little wild. Maybe you need to take that knowledge to the plate, or maybe they're just wild that night. Maybe you're the third batter of the game and there's been a walk and a 3 count pitch ahead of you, or a three ball count ahead of you. Well, you know what? Might not be a bad idea to take a pitch, or make him throw you a strike before you decide to go to work. So um, I think that's kind of basic things that have been perhaps lost here. Baseball's taught differently at the lower levels too. My son's 12U team, none of those kids can bunt, right?
Oh, wow. Yeah.
They cannot bunt at all. And I mean, that was the first thing we learned was
Sure.
how to
Yeah.
how to bunt.
Yeah.
So the bunt's bad because you don't give away outs. That's what analytics says. You see it in the major leagues when guys are asked to bunt, they can't get it done. It's a lost art. But anyway, the teaching of the game and approaches, things like that have changed as well.
Yeah, no doubt. And again, that thing about adjustments that you mentioned, that's another thing that Mac used to talk to me about when we'd sit there and watch games for all those years on Rangers Live. And he said, like, getting to the big leagues is a big deal, but staying is way harder because of that. Because he said you have to adjust. I go, oh, because they do this and then you have to adjust and then you're good. He goes, no, then they adjust to that and you have to adjust again. And then they adjust to that and you have to adjust again. And I'm like, so it's constant adjustments? He said, yeah, constantly. They're always trying to figure it out. And I'm like, what if you run out of adjustments? He said, you're done. You're done. That's it.
Yeah, and that's something that, going back to when I first started covering baseball, that Ron Washington talked about.
Yeah.
And the hitting coaches then, and Rudy, and then Clint Hurdle, and probably won't mention Thad Bosley, but Scott Coolbaugh, the Dave Maggin, and the whole list, the whole roster. And I'm not saying that Donnie Eckert didn't talk about that, but I just wonder if here they were searching so much for something that they kind of took their eye off the ball, figuratively, and it turned into a literal taking the eye off the ball. So I don't know. I just feel pretty good about the offense right now. I'm bullish on it.
Yeah, I am too. And because it not only looks different, it feels different. And when there were those sort of outbursts, there were a few of them, nothing, substantial, but not a lot of double digits or anything like that early. But it just really did feel like, oh man, I hope we can do this again tomorrow. And
Right.
and in the early part of the season, they proved that they couldn't.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think if it had been just April, Donnie would still be here, but you saw a lot of that last year.
Yeah.
And so it's changed, and change sometimes is a good thing. And looks like the early returns are positive. So we will give Brett some time, and what's the saying, John? Momentum is only as good as the next day's starting pitcher, and today's starting pitcher is pretty good for the Astros. So
He is. Yeah, he
it
is.
could be a low scoring game tonight. So that's where the talking to each other, watching the game, giving each other information, adjusting, all those things come into play in any game, but especially a low scoring game.
Yep, no doubt about it. It should be fun, and if the Rangers can get off to a good start against, I should say, Hunter Brown tonight, that could be significant because, as you see by his ERA, 1.48, he hasn't had that happen to him much so far this season. You may have him reeling at least just a little bit if you're able to get off to another quick start tonight. That'll be the goal. And, of course, getting a victory tonight will be the goal. Winning these 4-game series is hard, but the Rangers will definitely be striving to do that. It's the first game of the 2025 Silver Boot Series. So we got a little juice on this one, Jeff. That's a big deal. Big deal to everybody, I think. Yeah. All right, more coming up. Yeah, we continue to get you ready for a fun weekend at Globe Life Field. And we talk about some awfully significant news in Major League Baseball and a very significant milestone today, next on the DLLS Rangers Podcast. So Sunday's the day, folks. Sunday is the day the 75% clearance sale ends. And I was talking to the Queen prior to the show as we were running through our list of graphics and so forth. And I said, all right, I'm glad you told me because I'm going there. I swear to God, they're $8.50, I think. 75% off is like $8.50, $8.50. And anything I don't have, Jeff, I'm buying at $8.50. So I'll be on there. I don't care which team it represents. I love all our teams, and I love all the shirts. And I would encourage you to do that too. You know, even if you're reluctant, you go, well, I don't wear T-shirts that much, or I don't know, $8.50. Go buy one and see what you think. I think you're really going to like the shirts. They're very comfortable. It's a really nice cotton. They wash well. They're easy to care for and easy to keep, and they help represent. Right, you can go out there and tell people you're a fan of DLLS. We'd appreciate it if you do that part of it too. There's other stuff there too. I don't know if any of that's in the 75% deal, but it is a spring cleaning sale, so I imagine we're trying to sweep a lot of stuff out of there. So go to allcitynetwork.com, store.allcitynetwork.com, and get your discount today.
Hopefully they're making way for hats, John. But
I hope so.
You will. When you become a DLS diehard, which you can do by just if you're watching, scanning that QR code, or you can go to alldlls.com/join. $79.99. You get access to all of our stories for all the sports that we cover, and you get the free T-shirt. So you'll have to go to store.allcitynetwork.com to pick out your favorite shirt, whether it's a general DLS support or whether it's team specific. You'll want to do that, but again, our writers are so good. Sam on the Stars.
Yeah,
we got Tim on the Mavs, Clarence and Joe on the Cowboys, and me on the Rangers, and we have fun. We're plugged in. We've been around for a long time, so we know what's going on. And then we have these lovely podcasts that everybody seems to enjoy, watch parties, all kinds of stuff that you get when you're a diehard. So do it today.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, and as a diehard, you get 20% off our events. And I've been looking at some of the social posts and I did one of the events. Oh, the night that the national championship game was on, I went out to the Happiest Hour and did an event there. We had a giveaway and some stuff with them. But man, these Stars watch parties at Happiest Hour look like a heck of a fun time. So when I get back, I'm going to be, I'll just run down there and join them. We can walk from the office, Jeff. And by the way, we're really, obviously that Happiest Hour, it's really close to the American Airlines Center. So you kind of be there in the atmosphere and the vibe and everything of what's going on, as maybe the Stars won't need to come back in this series. If they win tonight, they won't. But if they do, we'll be there for you. And if you come to the event, you get 20% off by being a diehard as well. So that would be pretty cool. Today, Jeff, 9 years ago today, do you remember where you were?
I do. I was on a flight to San Francisco. I missed the whole thing.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah, I did.
But
I did.
They were going to Oakland next, right?
Right.
So were you going out in advance?
I always traveled a day ahead, or a night ahead. And when we landed, I wanted to see what the score was, and I got a lot more than the score. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. I couldn't believe my eyes. I was at at the ballpark that day, and and of course, like you, I had been at every game of the playoff series, including the bat flip game, and all that came with it. We talk a lot about the bat flip, but you remember Rangers family members and so forth were a little frightened because there was so much debris and beer cans and beer cups and all that stuff being thrown, not necessarily at the Rangers people, but you're in the line of fire when you're close to the action. And so there was a lot, right? There was a lot to that game. And then, Jeff, as you remember, it bubbled. There was a series in Toronto just a couple of weeks before that one, and it just bubbled and bubbled. And I'll be darned, it finally exploded there on that Sunday afternoon 9 years ago today.
Yeah, and what a punch by Odor. Jose Bautista wore it, and something I've been dying to do here. Unfortunately, he was with Frisco yesterday. Kevin Pillar, go back and watch the video of it. He went nuts.
Yeah, he did.
He was the Blue Jays center fielder, and he ended up getting suspended. He was out there going crazy.
Yeah, he was looking for redemption, wasn't he?
Yeah, and I really, really have wanted to talk to him about that, and it just worked out that he was injured and not in the clubhouse a lot, and been on rehab. I don't know if he's playing there today or not, but if he's here, he's getting asked because it's something I've been wanting to talk to him about. But kind of crazy how time flies, and Odor was a hero. He had a great year that year, and then things quickly went the other way with him. That's. I remember the next day we had to talk to Odor about maybe being suspended, and Elena was the translator, and even though Rugi knew exactly what we were saying, and then he did end up getting, what was it, 8 games? I think he might have gotten appealed down to 7, but it was a big one. It was a big one. One of the biggest in recent, memory.
And as we say, and we've said many, many times, most baseball bench clearing brawls aren't brawls at all. They're just kind of dance sessions, right? Everybody just goes out. This one, Kevin Pillar, Josh Donaldson was going crazy, looking for people, trying to get his hands on anybody he could. I mean, this was serious stuff, and I understand why. I mean,
sure,
that was one of the best, really, punches ever thrown in a major league game for sure, in a major league benches clearing brawl for sure. So it was pretty wild, and the video and the picture, with the glasses flying off and all that stuff.
Shot.
Those are fantastic. The Queen's in our private chat over here saying that was the first game she ever worked in the truck. Of course, she was at Bally with us. So yeah, things were wild in that truck too, and they were wild on the broadcast. And we just a lot of times things like that happen, and as a broadcaster, you're not sure how much you want to show it, and in that case, we knew. It's just, this is the thing. We're not backing off this one. This happened. Here it is. Take a look, everybody. And it's really, I mean, it's one of those very memorable moments. Nolan Ryan, with his, bulldog
Ventura,
Robin Ventura, and then of course when he got hit in the lip that time with the Bo Jackson ball, he's got the blood running down his uniform and all those types of things. Those are memorable moments that don't really have a hell of a lot to do with actual baseball, but they're very fun. So that was, I thought that was worthwhile to just walk down memory lane. I did not realize you weren't there with us that day. Did you see what Torey Lovello did yesterday?
I did see that. He
got tossed from the game. And you know what? I got to be honest with you. I hate the fact that that's one of the things that replay has wrought, is the fact that there aren't nearly as many good manager umpire shouting matches. I used to love like the Earl Weavers of the world and the Billy Martins of the
Yeah.
world, and even Sparky and even Johnny Oates. I mean, these guys, Sparky, he would always stand there with his back to the guy and let him yell at his back, and then Sparky turn around and get in his face. And Earl Weaver was so vociferous, and Billy with always kicking the dirt up on him, and those types of things. Loved all that stuff, and it's almost gone from the game. But man, Torey Lovello got tossed, and then he kind of went and pointed at every one of the umpires on the crew and tossed them all, Jeff.
Yeah, that was pretty good. And I generally think he's a mild-mannered guy,
I do
but
too.
and I thought the call was obvious. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know what he was arguing, but the obstruction at second base. And I was trying to think about it. For the runner to not be called out, he has to make an attempt to advance to the next base, which I think he was doing in the process. But also, he got hurt. So I
Right.
don't know how you can punish a guy for
How do
getting
you
hurt.
judge that? Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, it was a humorous moment, and if you haven't seen it, go check it out.
Go check that out, Torey Lovello. And then the big news came down actually Tuesday, right after our show, and we had a post-game show last night, so it wasn't necessarily a time to talk about it. But this news from Rob Manfred, Jeff, that now posthumously you will not be held to the standard that Pete Rose. And for my money, because whenever people used to talk about Pete Rose should be in, I'm like, well, then damn it, so should Shoeless Joe Jackson. And it appears that both now will have a pathway, at least, to the Hall of Fame, as their punishment lasts only until their death.
Yeah, so that's it'll be interesting. The writers don't get to vote because they're beyond 15 years. Their playing careers ended more than 15 years ago, so we're out on that one, and I'm glad because I don't want to hear about it. But so it will go. Their names will go to a committee, who then passes, establishes the ballot for the committee to vote, for another committee to vote upon. So I don't even know if it's going to get out of the first committee, and if Pete and Shoeless Joe will get out. I think that, there's I think there's some evidence maybe that Shoeless Joe wasn't
right
a central figure in this,
An
or
active
as complicit
That's right.
as others were. Whereas Pete Rose, eventually admitted to what he'd done.
Agreed.
There are going to be a lot of Pete's peers, I guess, who will be on these committees and might have the say. There are going to be some veteran writers who are probably like, no. I think I would probably not vote for him, to be honest. Shoeless Joe, I probably would vote for, but I don't know. It's going to be very, very interesting, and I'm sorry that it took the death of Pete Rose for this to happen. But I guess a lifetime ban ends when you die.
Right. And again, is that, I guess it's the interpretation of the rule. Well, it should have been interpreted this same way, decades ago, over a century ago, or whenever Shoeless Joe died. And that should have, allowed him, at least posthumously, to get the credit that he deserved on that. But it's a very interesting development, and it does, I suppose, Jeff, politicize the game some. You don't know the exact composition of those committees, do you? Or do you?
It's what, 8 players and 8 non-players, I think, or maybe it's just like 4 writers, but it's usually a fairly even balance, and it'll be determined the weekend before the winter meetings. 2027 is the earliest in this for Rose and Shoeless Joe, and if they get to that ballot, they meet in a hotel separate from the meetings, and they get together and talk and weigh all these decisions in each candidate, and then vote. And you have to get 75%. So you have to get 12 of the 16 people on the committee have to vote for you in order for you to get gain induction into the Hall of Fame.
All right, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a neat little sidebar to baseball, and I know especially the Pete Rose side of it is such a hot topic among so many sports fans. So, although that one's, it was much hotter in the 90s and stuff when everybody then remembered Pete Rose and everybody had an opinion on it. Not as much anymore. But a big weekend at Globe Life Field as the Rangers take on the hated Astros. Great pitching matchup tonight. I imagine you could still get a ticket, and I'd encourage you to do so. Go watch Jacob deGrom pitch against Hunter Brown tonight, just after 7 o'clock start on the game tonight, and then it's a 4-game series against the Astros. We'll be back on Sunday with a post-game show to wrap up that entire series, and then back to you next week, starting next Monday with our normal DLLS Rangers podcast. Thanks for joining.